Dear students, welcome and thank you for tuning in to this video. We are continuing our discussion about the product architecture. This is video number 8 of this topic, which is part of the product design development class. In this last video, we are going to talk about the types of modularity that are available for building our architecture for the products that we are designing and developing, and also some conclusions at the end. If you recall, we have talked about a method that we're going to use to create an architecture for our products that we are developing for your projects. We have discussed two types of architecture. We said we have something called modular architecture, and the other type is integral architecture. So we need to pick one of those for our products that we are developing. And I'm always leaning toward modular architecture. And in a quick review, modular architecture is one in which a functional element of the product is implemented by exactly one physical chunk. So each chunk is doing one task, one function. To recall also, chunk is a collection of components or parts. So we are dedicating a chunk for a function, and this way we have few well-defined interaction between different chunks. So architecture of our product, to simplify it, is about multiple chunks, and each chunk is made of components or elements, and we dedicating each chunk to perform a specific functional element. And this is good for us at this stage because it simplifies the architecture, and if we want to make any modifications, it will be just modifying that particular chunk, and we don't have to deal with the other chunks. So to come to what types of modularities we have, if you look at the image that we are showing of the picture, there are different types of modularities that are available for us for this modular architecture. So you can have something called swapping, you should have something called bus, and something called section. So we have 6 of them shown from the textbook that we are using. We are going to focus our effort on 3 types of modularities that we're going to discuss in more details, and those are the Slot-modular Architecture and the Bus-modular Architecture and the Sectional Modular Architecture. So this is slot, the bus, and the sectional, and we're going to talk about each one of them and how they are used, and which you need to think about your product and your project. Which one do you think is the best that fits your product? Again, each type embodies one-to-one mapping with functionality to each chunk. So we can say that this is a chunk and it does one specific task, and there are very few interactions between the other chunks and also with the connections. So this is the simplest way to look at these things. So the box here, or the square here, is a chunk, and it has inside it multiple elements or components that all of them together makes or create or perform one task or one function. This is another chunk, and this is another chunk. So the first type is the Slot-modular Architecture, which is this type here, and each of the interfaces between chunk in a Slot-modular architecture is of a different type. So you can see we have different chunks, and you can look at, we have this connection that connect all of them together, and each one of them has a different interaction. So the square has this square interaction, and the interface, actually square interface, and this semi-elliptical has a semi-elliptical interface, and this triangle has this interface. So each one of them has its unique interface with the let's say this slot that connect all of them together, and there are reasons for doing that. So the variety of chunks is the product cannot be interchanged. That's very important. So you can't replace one in the place of the other chunk. And for example, this is a simple example of this type of modularity is, let's say, the automobile radio. So you can see that it has a different connection with the car as opposed to the speedometer, which has a different connection to the car. So the interfaces are different, and this is something you need to think about for your product. Do you need something? Do you think this is what's work best for your project, for your product that you're developing? The second type of the modularity is a bus-modular architecture, and this is the one in the middle, and you can see that we have a common bus here, and it's which each of the other chunks connected by the same type of interface. So you can see that the interface is square, square, square for this, the triangle and the square, and also the half elliptic chunk. And this is good for consistency and it makes things easier that each one of them is interchangeable, right? They can be all placed on this chunk. So you can have, instead of the elliptic here, you can have the square and it still continue working. Example of these types of modularities, the bus modular is your computer, the motherboard in your computer, where you can put your personal computer, you can put expansion cards, and they can be placed in any place on your motherboard or in the buses there. The third type is called sectional modular architecture, which is this one to the right. And this is the sectional modular architecture. Here, all interfaces are of the same type, but there is no single element to which all the chunks are attached. So the chunks are attached to each other with the same interface. So if you see this line here, it's the same interface, and all these chunks are attached to the same location. One example of this is the office partitions. You can see that when you build an office partition, you can have, they can be all attached to the same place. So you can have the disk, you can have the walls, and all of them, they have the same interactions or, interfaces. So those are the three simple types that we would like to learn about. So for your project, you need to think which one of those will work the best. Again, we're using modular architecture. Each chunk is responsible about one functionality, and we have limited interaction with other chunks, as you see here. I hope this clarifies all the aspects of the product architecture and gives you an idea of how to move forward in your product. I will be sending you a weekly activity grid with all the tasks that you have to do for your project that comes from this lecture. Also, I will send the end of lecture quiz, and you can do it online. Now, there are some concerns when we develop our architecture. So planning is the major concern, especially if you want to have a lot of varieties, and there are a lot of varieties in your design, and you have a lot of interaction between the chunks, and you're working with the you need a lot of capabilities for your product. So planning is key. It's very important, especially if you're working with a lot of people and different groups. That's the other thing that comes into play is coordination. So it's very critical. And if you're working with a product that has a lot of interaction between the chunkers, then you have to interact with teams, and you might be different companies, and you have probably different places and different around the world. So you have to be very careful. Special attention needs to be paid also to the interaction between the chunkers. So if you have simple interactions, that's fine, that's modular. If it's integral with a lot of interactions, we need to be very careful, and we have to make focus groups and communicate very well. So those are the practical concerns when we do our architecture. In conclusion, architecture choices define the subsystems and the modules of the product platform or family that we are developing. So keep that in mind and look at the big picture when you develop a product. You're not going to develop one product, you need to develop a platform for more products and varieties and models. Architecture, the outcome of the architecture, that we need to be able to have ease of production variety, and also feasibility of customer modification if we need it, and also we have to identify the system level production costs. So this is the big picture, the output. It's not just the design that we are going, or the architecture that we develop. We need to optimize for these outcomes. Key concepts: pay attention to modular versus integral architecture. This is very important, and how to cluster your functional elements into clusters in your schematics and design. As engineers, this is what everything comes down to: our functional composition and functional diagrams and decomposition, and then we have all these functional elements and physical elements, and we need to cluster them into chunks. And then the chunks need to communicate and interact with other chunks to build up the product that we would like to design, that we are designing and developing. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Till the next video. Bye.